went on my second Icon of the Seas cruise since the ship launched, and it was 5 months later, and I love the ship. But even though Icon is my favorite ship, there are a few things that I actually hate about Icon. Up next. Hey everyone, it's Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, and Icon of the Seas, as I mentioned, is my favorite ship in the fleet, but there are a few things that I really don't like about it. Now, being the first in the Icon class, I suspect Royal Caribbean will probably make some changes with the subsequent classes, similar to what they did with Oasis, and then Allure, and then Harmony, and Symphony, but I wanted to list the things that I hope they do change. Number one, the suites on Icon of the Seas are a little lacking compared to the Oasis class ships. Now, this is a nitpicking thing, but after going on Wonder of the Seas and the other Oasis-class ships, I found the suite offerings on Icon to be a little disappointing. And this is really something that you would only notice if you stay in a lot of suites, but I feel like the suites generally feel a lot smaller. As an example, the Icon Loft Suite on Icon of the Seas is a star-class room. That's the uppermost echelon of the suite program, but it felt smaller than the Crown Loft Suites available on the Oasis-class ships, which are only Sky-class cabins. Essentially, the size of the cabin and the balcony itself just felt a little more smaller than what you might otherwise find on the Oasis class. Now, at first, I thought maybe this is just me being weird, but I talked to a couple of friends who do stay in suites all the time, and they confirmed that they had the same observation, that there's nothing wrong with the suites on Icon, but compared to the Oasis-class ships, the size of them is a little lacking. In addition, it's really hard to find a suite with 2 bathrooms in it. The Icon Loft Suite does have that, but many others only have 1 bathroom. And if you're sharing a cabin with somebody else that's not your partner, like maybe your kids or friends, even though these are expansive suites, having only 1 bathroom is a little bit of an issue, more of an annoyance than anything else. I think where the Oasis class suites are better is the fact, number one, they have the Aqua Theater suites, which are substantially larger. And on top of that, it seems like there are generally less suites to choose from. So if you're somebody who's used to staying in a suite on other Royal Caribbean cruise ships, you might find the choices a little lackluster on Icon, relatively speaking. Number 2 is the show times for entertainment, especially on the Royal Promenade, needs to be tweaked. So Royal Caribbean came up with this great idea of having a Royal Promenade with a lot of energy and a lot more openness to it. And I really like that idea because the concept here is that the promenade should really envelop the guests and make them feel like there's something happening. There's a lot more energy than you find traditionally on a traditional Royal Promenade on other ships. With that in mind, the show times, especially for the pub, Schooner Bar, dueling pianos, and boleros are all staggered so that one can operate at a time. The problem with this plan, in many cases, you'll find that one venue is basically done by 10 p.m. And that's a real issue if you're used to going to these places, because by 10 o'clock, this is when people really start getting into the party vibe. Moreover, that means they're starting much earlier, around 6 o'clock, and that's when a lot of people are at dinner still or seeing a show. And I find that the real value of going to the Schooner Bar or the pub or even boleros is being able to enjoy some of those late evening activities, specifically as it goes into 10, 11, and 12 o'clock. Having spent a lot of time in all these venues on Icon of the Seas, it really ruined the mood when the singer or performers need to wrap it up by 10 o'clock. Now, Royal Caribbean says they want to not have noise bleed between the venues, and I would argue that when you're inside each of these venues, you won't be able to hear that much noise from somewhere else, although, of course, the performers may be more sensitive to the noise bleed issues because they need to be able to hear the song they're playing in their head and not someone else's music. Regardless of that fact, either they need to refactor the idea of having more of an open area, maybe add some more walls or noise cancellation to some of these venues, or simply rearrange the times, provide more of a gap in between so that they can each go longer into the evening, but you can't have the Schooner Bar or the pub ending at 10 o'clock on multiple nights during the cruise. It really was a detraction from the experience. Something else I really found interesting was the amount of compelling, let's call it that, specialty restaurants on Icon of the Seas. You know, Royal Caribbean has really made a name for itself with all of its specialty dining concepts. When there's a new ship that comes out, there's always new restaurants and things that you want to try when you go on a Royal Caribbean ship, and specialty restaurants are usually at the top of that list. With Icon, there were a number of new concepts, but I really found that if you have a dining package in Icon, there are a few specialty restaurants that are actually worth going to. If you go down the list, there are certainly on paper a lot of specialty restaurants. This is not Enchantment of the Seas that only has Chops Grill and the Chef's Table. But what I find is, number one, they have Hooked, which I always found a strange choice for a restaurant. It's usually ranked quite poorly among cruisers, but that's a restaurant that I usually don't go to. On top of that, you have the Empire Supper Club, which I absolutely love, but it is not included with the unlimited dining package, and it's not cheap either if you go to do that. So what I really found was, by far, most of the time, you were eating at either Chops, Giovanni's, or Izumi. And of course, you could go to Playmakers as well, but Playmakers isn't really a sit-down meal. It's certainly something where you go to have dinner or a full meal, but you know what I mean? It's not on the same level as a Chops or an Izumi where it feels like, hey, let's have a dinner out kind of experience. Really, I think Icon is missing that one more restaurant in terms of the specialty lineup that really makes it compelling. And I really felt like it was missing 150 Central Park, which is one of my favorite restaurants on the Oasis class. I think this really has to do with the fact that Hooked is just simply a poor choice in general. I'm not a big fan of it, and I don't think I'm alone in that sentiment. And on top of that, even if you do like Hooked, a lot of people reported on the nosebleed issues that Hooked has from the Aquadome when there's a show going on in there. Going back to the cabins, there's something else that I felt like Royal Caribbean over-engineered, and that is the storage space. There's significantly less storage space in an average cabin on Icon than an Oasis-class ship. With the Oasis class, if you go on a Harmony of the Seas, Symphony of the Seas, or Wonder of the Seas, I think you'll find plenty of storage. In fact, more storage than you absolutely need. And a lot of people reported that the storage spaces on those cabins kind of reminds them of IKEA in a way. That's not a bad thing, by the way. I mean, there's just a lot of storage all around the room, and that historically had been a problem with cruise ship cabins going back decades. With Icon, it seems like Royal Caribbean over-engineered a problem that didn't exist. They wanted to have contemporary, modern-looking cabins, and I love that. That's good. Don't have always the same thing. But what they ended up doing was adding baskets for some of the places that would have otherwise had drawers. And this seems like, on paper, a good idea. Something different, something new, something fresh. The problem with the baskets is they're very impractical. It's hard to slide them in and out. Number two, people can see what's in the basket. So if you have friends or somebody else coming into the room, I don't think necessarily you want them to see what's in there. A lot of cases, the baskets, because they're smaller by nature, would hold undergarments, but it's just not very practical. And there's no reason why I think a drawer couldn't have fixed that. But generally speaking, I found the storage limited and impractical on Icon, and I hope they kind of move away from that. And the last thing I really did not enjoy about Icon of the Seas was the layout of the Schooner Bar. The Schooner Bar is kind of weird in the sense that they put the piano all the way on one side and the bar smack dab in the middle. So as the Schooner Bar player, they're really not the focus of what's happening in there. And the Schooner Bar experience, in my opinion, is that piano performance that goes on every evening of the cruise. It's a real draw, and what I think a lot of people enjoy about that. Now for trivia, this is totally fine. But by having the piano all the way on the side, and by the way, a complete lack of seating anywhere near the piano, it really presents a problem for connecting the audience to the performer there. On other ships, there are chairs that go all around the piano. And more so, the chairs and seating that are near the piano are spread out to the point where it really feels like they're almost in a different venue from the piano player. It's strange how they picked it. I'm not sure if there was maybe a question of accessibility and making sure that wheelchairs can fit between these areas or some other consideration. I'm not sure. But I feel like they kind of missed the mark with the layout of the Schooner Bar on Icon of the Seas. All right, there you have it. Some of the things that I really don't enjoy about Icon. Suffice to say, I love the ship. I'll go back again and again. And it's my favorite ship in the fleet. But I got to be real. I got to keep it real with all of you and list out the things I didn't like about Icon of the Seas. Let me know in the comments below what really stands out to you about Icon. What do you love about it? What do you hate about it? And while you're down below our video, hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications. That way, YouTube lets you know we have a brand new video to share. This has been Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, and we'll talk again real soon.